everyone and welcome back to my channel. So my name's Katie and today I'm going to be talking about some underrated / underhyped fantasy books which I think deserve more love and attention and just think more people in general should read. And yeah, so these are adult fantasy, so I'm going to make this into a little series. So I'm planning on doing a adult fantasy one today and then also a sci-fi one and then a YA fantasy one as well. So yes, so this is some adult fantasy recommendations for you, which you might not have seen as much on BookTube or just aren't as hyped, I guess. So yeah, so the first series I'm going to talk about is actually quite a famous author, but I feel like I don't see that many people reading this series of hers, and that is The Killing Moon and the Shadowed Sun by N.K. Jemisin. So this is actually one of my favourite like duologies of hers. I actually prefer this, I think, to the Broken Earth trilogy, which is like her mega famous one, but these ones are so good. I think especially as someone who does medicine is really interesting because like the magic system is quite like based around death and like what makes a good death, and I think that's a really interesting theme to explore. And like these different, like this, I think there's like, I can't remember exactly because it's been a while since I read them, but it's almost like these 4 biles or something, or maybe bile is one of the 4 magics, I can't quite remember, but anyway, they're really good. So in the first one we're following the Killing Moon, and it's kind of this almost like ancient Egypt type setting. I think it's said to be inspired by, I'm just reminding myself of the plot here. So yeah, we're following 3 characters. So Yarrow, his apprentice, whose name I've forgotten, and Hanani is a character in the second one. What's the female character? Oh, Najiri is Yarrow's apprentice, and Sanandi. They're the 3 kind of main characters, and there's various things going on in the city. So people are dying from this mysterious like dream magic, or like this dream is like killing people, and then they're trying to investigate what's going on. In typical N.K. Jemisin fashion, like the writing is so kind of beautiful but also sinister in a way, and then in the second book as well, kind of reminds me a bit weirdly of The Lion King too. But yeah, I really like the second one. Hanani and Wahuman are the 2 characters in this one, and they're almost like a generation down from the characters in this one, which I really like, but it's just expanding more on the magic and like the politics and everything. And yeah, it's just a really great series. N.K. Jemisin always excels on the themes. The whole kind of dream death magic is just such an interesting thing to explore. So yeah, I would highly recommend this duology. Okay, then next we have The Unspoken Name by A.K. Lockwood. Now, if you have been following my channel for like this time last year, I was absolutely obsessed with this. I loved it when I read it, although I feel like I haven't talked about it that much since then. So this one I feel like was in my Gideon the Ninth era, which is always my Gideon the Ninth era, to be honest, and actually it's nearly time for my reread of those 2, but this one does give me slight like Gideon the Ninth vibes, but it stands on its own as a book. And actually the narrator for the audiobook, because I first read the audiobook and I loved it, is Vita J, and she does all of B's narration in the Fits in the Full audiobooks, which I love. So yeah, she's a great audiobook narrator, so I'd highly recommend the audiobook for this one. So anyway, we're following Sorcery, who's kind of been brought up in this like cult, basically gonna be sacrificed as like a child bride to this monster, but the night before that happens, she gets taken away by this mysterious stranger who like takes her away and then makes her his apprentice. So Sorcery kind of grows up as his apprentice, along with this sort of her kind of adopted brother type character called Tal, who they kind of have a bit of a love-hate relationship, Sorcery and Tal. But anyway, then it kind of skips forwards a few years and they're older, and then it's following Sorcery and Tal, and they're going on this mission to this other like country to try and track down this artifact for their like adopted father, who is a sorcerer who is also semi-evil. But and along the way they meet various other characters. Sorcery and Tal I feel like are the highlight of the book for me, because their like sibling banter is just unmatched. Like they hate each other, but you know deep down they love each other, but it's just so funny. And then also Sorcery and this other character called Shuth Mealy, who's like this scholar, have a bit of a relationship going on, so that's a sapphic relationship, which I also really liked. And I just really liked all the sort of drama and I think the character relationships especially, but also the kind of magic, and like it feels very almost like yeah, the magic is necromancy actually. So it's a perfect kind of time of year to read it, like around now. Would highly recommend. It's like that kind of chaotic gay energy that I always love from books. And actually its sequel, I believe, comes out in like January or February of next year, so I'm very excited for that. And I believe it's Tal's book, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I would highly recommend this one as well. Okay, and then next we have The Wolf of Oren Yarrow by K.S. Veloso and the Iskar Falcon and Dragon of Jinsayang, which are its sequels. I had them down here, but I can't be bothered to get them out. So this is another really fun series. I say fun. It's quite dark and harrowing at times, to be honest, so it's not that fun, but it's a really enjoyable series to read. We're following Tali, or Talien, who is this queen, and she's like known as the bitch queen because she's sort of had to be quite ruthless to almost prove herself as a woman ruler in this world, because her father, like the previous warlord, was very like badass and all that. And then Tali basically goes to this city to meet with her ex-husband, and her ex-husband like basically ran away like the night before they were going to be married or something. Oh no, they were married. He ran away at some point under slightly like mysterious circumstances, and then when they're in the city supposedly having this meeting, they all get attacked, and then Tali basically has to fend for herself on the streets. That's kind of the main plot of the first one. And along the way she meets this con artist called Kine, who I love Kine so much. He's such a great character. He's also like a doctor as well. I don't know how to describe him, but yeah, he's really great. So Tali and Kine are trying to like survive together, I don't know. And then there's a lot of politics that comes into it. Books 2 and 3 especially gets a lot more like political and a lot more expanded in scope. And at one point I'm sure Tali's son gets like kidnapped or something, but and actually that's another thing of the book. Tali is a mother, and I feel like the theme of motherhood is quite well explored in a slightly different way as well from it's most often seen. So I think that's a really interesting thing, because like she's trying to be a good mother, but also her kind of duties is taking her away from that, but she's almost doing it in a more like I want to make the world a better place for my son type thing. But then also she can be quite ruthless at times, so it's interesting. And actually there's dragons later in the series. I'm not sure you really see them in book 1, but in books 2 and 3 there's definitely some good like dragon content. And yeah, Tali is just such a great character. She's like up there with the great characters in terms of like character development and like character time, and I just really love her. And Kine as well, I love. And actually Tali's husband, Rael, you don't get much of him in the first book, but in book 3 especially, he kind of weirdly like grows on you. And then there's some great like horrible characters that you like love to hate type thing. And yeah, it's really just Tali's journey, and like we're seeing the people she meets and like meeting them along with her, and I don't know, it's just a really great series, and I think more people should read it. So yeah. Next we have The Library of the Unwritten by A.K. Hackworth and A.J. Hackworth even. I think I'm getting confused there. Oh, it's getting so dark outside. Okay, so yeah, this and its sequel, Archive of the Forgotten, and then the last book in the trilogy, which is coming out very soon, I believe in like a couple of days when I'm filming this, called The God of Lost Words. And I just love this series. It's just peak like queer found family vibes, and it's just so comforting and cozy to read. It gives me a lot of Good Omens vibes as well. So in the first book we're following Claire, who's the librarian in the Library of the Unwritten, which is essentially a branch of the like library in hell, and it's basically where all these books go that have never been written. And then one day a character called Hero escapes from one of the books and tries to go and hunt down his author. So Claire and her assistant Brevity have to go and try and hunt down Hero before he starts causing destruction everywhere. And they also are joined by this demon called Leto, who is a great character. Well, they're all great characters. Like Brevity's also are great, and Hero is like the kind of lovable twat who just, especially in book 2, Hero just, I love him so much. And at the same time they're also being stalked by this angel called Rami, Here's another great character. I just love them all. And I think it's been a while since I read the first book, but I'm sure they like travel through different like realms. Like I'm sure they end up in Valhalla at one point, and it's just all that kind of like mythology tied in with like the hell imagery, and I just really love it. I feel like this is a great time of year to read it as well. And just the whole like found family vibes are great. In book 2 there's a polyamorous relationship, which is just chef's kiss. And yeah, just the relationships the characters have with one another as well. Like I think especially Claire and Brevity, and that kind of like mentor relation, that like mentor-mentee relationship, I think is really interesting, and like how it almost toes the line between like mother-daughter type vibes, but then it's also not, and I think it's really interesting. And all the characters are great, and yeah, I just think it's a really fun series, and I think more people should read it, especially if you're looking for something like comforting. Like Archive of the Forgotten is my go-to comfort book. Like I reread that book like about 3 times within about 2 weeks when I first read it, because I just loved it so much. Okay, maybe 2 weeks is an exaggeration, but like within a month. I just loved it. So yeah, I would highly recommend this series. Next we have The Counselor by E.J. Beaton, and this one is a very political fantasy book. So we're following the main character Lysand, and she is essentially the like palace scholar to this queen Cerelyn, and Cerelyn is poisoned at the start of the book, and essentially Lysand is then told by Cerelyn's like will type thing, that she is now in charge of choosing the next leader for the country. So there's these 4 sort of faction like leaders of different parts, and she has to choose like an overall ruler, but these 4 sort of leaders have their own various agendas, and also Lysander's quite suspicious that one of them has killed Cerelyn, so it's kind of a murder mystery at the same time as there's a lot of politics going on about who's going to be the next leader, and like the kind of backstabbing and things that are going on there. And Lysander also trying to navigate almost being in charge. She's been like thrust into this position, and can she trust her like advisors and things, and it's just really good. It's very political, like there's a bit of action but not a lot. I would say a lot of it's sort of character like talking, and yeah, that kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but I really like it. And Lysander's a great character. I think she's a great bisexual like representation, and yeah, like the kind of anxious horny bisexual we all need. And yeah, I really like it. I don't even know how to describe it other than what I've said about the plot so far, and that it's political. I really enjoyed the audiobook. It's narrated by Murray Quirk, who does the Gideon and Harriet audiobooks, so I would definitely recommend the audio. Although if you struggle with like complicated type audiobooks, maybe not the best one, because there's a lot going on, and I feel like it does take a little bit to get into, but it's really good. Like the kind of twisty like politics and things, and actually the magic's really interesting. I can't quite remember, but I'm sure it's like kind of elementally type magic, and the people who are magical are kind of persecuted, and that's another sort of element to the plot, like because Lysand is friends with some of the like magical people, and she's trying to like advocate for their rights as well, so that's all going on as well. So it's very interesting and good, and I enjoy it. So yeah, that's why it's on this list. So that's that one. Okay, then next we have a book which I read very recently, and that is The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. So this one I've just put away and I can't be bothered to get back out, but I'll put a little picture of it in there. And this one is so much fun. So it's set in a kind of Venetian inspired world, I would say, and we're following Ren, who's this con artist, and essentially she was born in this city. The city's called like Nazera or something, and she's like brought up in this like, what's it called, like gang, but she kills the leader of the gang and betrays him and then runs away when she's young, and she's now returning to the city posing as a noble to try and con her way into one of the families so she can like join the family and get the money and things. So that's kind of what's going on, and it's just a lot of fun. So we're following quite a few different characters. So Ren, obviously, who's pulling off this con, and she's also along with her sister, she's not like blood sister, but like sister in arms, who grew up with her like as a street rat type thing, called Tess, who's posing as her maid. So I really like them. And then the family that Ren's trying to join, called the Tremitists. And they are, so the main like matriarch called Donaya, they're all very like fantasy names. And then her son Leto and her daughter Guana, and they're both really great characters. Leto's such like a golden boy type thing, and then Guana has like a sapphic vibe to her, which I just really like both of them. And as I say, in the city as well, there's a lot of sort of politics going on, and houses trying to like backstab and betray each other and like take each other down. So that's kind of a lot of where the conflict comes from. Then we also have this character called Vargo, who I absolutely love. Vargo is a new favourite character, like for sure. He's like so sort of ruthless and like not sleazy, but in a way, and like trickstery, and yeah. And what's he trying to do? Yeah, so he's like basically made his fortune as a crime lord, and now he's trying to like go clean essentially, but you kind of know he's not. And he teams up with Ren, or as she's Renata, that's who she's posing as, and gets Renata to basically be his advocate to try and get him like contracts. So that's one side of the story as well. And then there's also this character called Grey, who is like a hawk, and they're like the police officers kind of, and Grey's basically trying to get revenge for his brother who died in a factory fire, while also he's also like spreading, he's like, I don't know, he's like low-key working for the Tremitist family and like investigating Ren, and there's just a lot of convoluted stuff going on. And there's also this masked vigilante called the Rook, who is a really interesting character, and you're trying to figure out like who he is the whole book, like because there's various characters that like he could be, and like various theories like come and go, and it's all very interesting. And there's a lot of elements of magic to it, and I really like the magical elements. Like there's this it's almost like dream astrology tarot card type magic, and it's quite like almost like folk tale-y. I don't know, because as well in the city there's the kind of almost natives to the city who've been like booted out and are quite they are wanting their like religion and things back almost. So I think that's another interesting element to it as well. And it almost sort of gives like it's kind of almost Venetian-y, but also a bit sort of Russian-y, I would say. Those kind of vibes. Really enjoyable. There's like a lot of meat to it. Like I would say at times it almost borders on too convoluted, but also it's just like really like layered, and there's lots going on, and it's just a really like enjoyable read. So would highly recommend that one. We had The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington, and this one, I don't know how popular this one is actually, but I haven't seen that many people talking about it, so I definitely recommend it, especially if you like Sanderson, Wheel of Time type things. It's very sort of like classic fantasy feeling. There's a lot of sort of like the prose is really easy to read, but like there's a lot of world building, and I always like lots of world building, and like the magic's really interesting. There's like this whole like thing of a magical, not race, but like magical people, they're called Argers, who have like all been like killed off, but now they're gradually starting to come back, and there's a lot of mystery around that, and like trying to work out what's going on there, which I think is interesting. There's also a lot of playing with time, which I actually really like. I don't always like time travel-y, time messing. I wouldn't say this was time travel though, it's just like playing with time in a way. It's quite interesting how it's done. And we're following kind of 4 main characters, and at the start of the book 3 of them basically go to this like school for magicians essentially, but then one day 2 of them, so Davian and Weir, Davian gets a warning saying he should leave, so he leaves and takes Weir with him, and then the whole school then basically gets massacred, all except from Asha, who is like Davian and Weir's friend, and she's kind of the only survivor, and she thinks that Davian and Weir are dead as well, so then she also has her kind of story arc. So that's kind of how it starts, and then they go off on various quests and like training, and it's like classic fantasy, but it's a lot of fun, and I really like the characters. They were like disaster teenagers, and you just love them. And then they find this other character called Caden, who is probably my favourite. I love him. Who is like, he doesn't have a lot of his memories, and he's like a criminal, but he can't remember anything. Or like, he's not a criminal, he's being held as a prisoner for criminal acts, but he can't remember any of his past or anything, which I think is really interesting. And yeah, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot with the sort of magic and the limitations on the magic. Like the magical people are quite sort of seen as like threats, so they have all these things called the tenants, which they can't use their magic for this and they can't use their magic for that. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and I think that it's just a really like good kind of classic fantasy to like sink your teeth into. So yeah, I would recommend this one as well. So that's that one. Let me know in the comments any fantasy books that you think are underrated and you would like more people to read. I would really love to know. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I hope you're all having a really great day, and I'll see you next time.